Hello, welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. This is our final day of the week. We're going to get to see our last excessive amount of blank song, and I'm told this one has an excessive amount of noise or static. That it's intriguing. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not, what is an excessive amount of noise? We've heard some noisy stuff before, but the title, I think, is what I'm most intrigued by. What is this? I recognize some of this. There's some simple math things. There's some more complex math stuff I've seen in Calc 3, differential equations. But there's also some like sciencey symbols in here that I'm not too sure on. And yeah, I don't know. I guess we just gotta dive into this. Also, this thumbnail is incredibly intimidating. So I just want everyone to know, going into this song, I'm a bit afraid. So let's see what Paul Jebanasam has in store for us with this song that I can't pronounce the title to. I will say the production is fantastic. The use of space. Oh, we almost had something musical show up, and it was gone just as quick as it came. Very interesting. So it almost sounds like it wants to be a techno beat there. It hits the downbeat, and then it hits just after the downbeat, and then it hits like on the end of 2 for the next beat. Yeah, man, this is almost like trying to start a lawnmower, but if you're trying to start an electric music machine, like the song's made and you have to physically get an engine moving to start your song. Fascinating. these temporal fluctuations, they're so interesting because they always give the illusion of a beat, and it phases in and out so subtly. It's almost like an auditory illusion. It's also interesting, sometimes it fades out and sometimes it's just cut off. bassness of some of these tones is just wild. They start in the center and they just like spread out. It just is wild. Love how it's finding beauty in this moment. I'm really waiting to see if the song ends on a chordal resolution or not. Dude, there's some gnarly sub bass tones there too. My headphones barely picked them up. I'm sure somebody with some expensive audio equipment is probably going to feel something awesome. I don't know how often that sub bass was used, but yeah, that was some low tones. So I have no idea how long this analysis is going to be because I don't know that I have much to add to this outside of your personal experience having listened to it. It is so far divorced from what I typically look for in music and what I typically utilize to explain what's going on in music thematically and how that might link up with lyrical themes. This is an exploration of a space, a feeling. Not quite sure, but I do want to begin with praising the production. I said it when we started. I didn't want to bring it up every time something new that I really enjoyed came up, but there were so many, not tones in particular. I will say that the sounds utilized in here were very cool, especially in the first half of that mechanical element to it, almost like being inside of a machine. I think a lot of those were created exceptionally well and fit the mood of the piece and the tone of the piece uh, perfectly. And if they were created, which I've come to understand, most electronic artists are going to be making their own sounds because they're trying to create what's specifically in their head, and that's not always going to be something that can be found in sample packs and stuff like that. So the creation of these sounds alone, phenomenal. I've mentioned before, it's a craft all into itself. It is so foreign to me as somebody who tends to, or at least in the past, I've started moving into some electronic stuff. It's really fun. I still have not made my own sounds yet, not really. But I tend to write music for timbres that exist. I write music for guitars, for violins, for trumpets. When I hear a melody or a chordal movement or atmospheric stuff in my mind, there's a timbre applied to it that is one of the instruments that already exists. I don't typically go out of my way to make a new sound. It is just a completely bonkers thing in my mind that these people can not only create these hyper complex songs, but also make the sounds they're comprised of. They are creating the tools of their music or of their art as well as the art. It is just, I have so much appreciation for the craft of being an electronic music creator. It is just so foreign to me. I write the music and the tools, the instruments, the timbres, the voices, they're already there. I don't have to worry about that part. It just kind of blows my mind, especially when you see how some of this stuff's created once you get into these massive walls of synth panels or whatever with like hundreds of cables tying them all together. They're like, this is the perfect sound, and they play it. I'm like, yeah, that's great. How did you do that? Uh, so yeah, I have a lot of admiration for the craft of sound creation, especially here. Everything here just fits. It is perfectly crafted for this track to create the sound, the atmosphere, the tone, the emotion that Paul was going for. but then also on the production side of it, as far as tweaking the music after it's been made, after the sounds have been created and tied to uh, these melody lines and atmospheric concepts, the production of it, how wide some of these sounds are, where they're placed in the song. It is man, it's a sonic journey listening to this track and the way that everything's placed. It's just it's done with such a precision to create a specific idea. Again, this is just it's just bonkers. All the work that goes into crafting something like this, and I have such an appreciation for it. I really do. Electronic music is just, man, especially when you start getting into experimental stuff like this. I don't even want to begin to pretend that I understand how any of the first 10 minutes of this were made. The last 6 minutes or so, once we started entering um, those chordal structures, I get that. That's my realm right there. That's where I really start to felt comfortable with the music and what was going on in it. But I mean, all those really fast repetitions and loops and really quick beats and all that. I was out of my depth there. I really was. I have a vague understanding of how it's created, but I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to pretend to have any knowledge into the amount of work that went into creating that multifaceted, ridiculously deep layered first 10 minutes or so. It is just, man, and it's a ride too. It's a journey. That was phenomenal. Um, but I do want to take this and invert it a little bit. I can't explain what's going on in the minutia. That's a little, like I said, I'm out of my depth there. I do want to explore a little bit about what's going on the larger idea of things. And I don't know that any of this is intentional. I'm going to go into this assuming that this is simply my experience with this art and that it may not be, and probably is not, indicative of the authorial intent of the music. To me, this is a minimalistic piece that explores the beginnings of what's that, the drop? Is that what they call it in techno? Yeah, it's a minimalistic piece that explores the beginning of a drop in techno. And if I'm wrong about the drop, what I mean is that part where we may have just come out of something a bit lighter, melody, maybe some sort of atmospheric stuff that's kind of harp-like. Um, Maybe there's a bit of silence, and then the bass drops. Boom, 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 boom. It's that huge moment in the middle of a techno track, and it's just when all that energy and that tension gets released into this huge climactic moment. I think that's called the drop. I could be wrong. So, minimalism in music, I've had described to me as an exploration of a moment, usually an extremely thorough exploration of a moment. Say even two notes or a single note, which is kind of what I'm getting here, and you explore it hyper thoroughly. What does this moment mean? And to me, like I said, this is sort of the idea of the beginning of a drop, that first punchy bass note. What does that look like when you drill down and you analyze it in nanoseconds? What does each nanosecond look like? And what if we blew each nanosecond up to a bar? And that's really what I'm getting here. I mentioned at the beginning, it reminded me of starting a lawnmower, the ones with the big pull strings. You got like pullers, like vroom, 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 vroom. and you just can't get it to start. It feels like it's going to, and then it doesn't. And that's what the beginning of the song, to me, feels like. It is the beginning of a drop, but in nanoseconds. You haven't actually hit it yet. Technically, at that very beat, it's come in, right? And if we were in real time, we'd already be moving. But we're looking at this at nanoseconds. In this nanosecond, it has started, but we haven't moved to the next part yet. We haven't processed into, a whole second later when we might be hitting the next beat. What does that sound like? What does it feel like to be in a moment for a while? And that moment is the beginning of something. And I think it's really interesting that we get this concept of, starting. And it's also cool because when we started this moment, we were hitting that, and like I said, it felt like we were on the beat, and then slightly behind the beat, and then way behind the beat. And it gave the illusion of, creating this moment, and it slowly, fell out of pace. But as we progressed through this moment, maybe a minute later, 2 minutes later, every time that the beat started to come in, it would speed up until it got too fast and fizzled out. So we saw this element of starting and then losing steam, and then we saw the element of starting and gaining too much steam and not being able to actually, get into it. We've gone the opposite way. We've overcorrected here. And then eventually, I don't even know how far into the music we were. It's just, man, it was a journey. I was not really paying attention to time or anything, and then of course, not really having any defined sections to the song. It's really difficult to define moments. But sometime after this part, maybe like 7-8 minutes in, we get into sort of a groove, a nice beat. It's heavy, it's very mechanical. This to me is that moment where the beat actually kicks in. Right? We are exploring the part where we have this note down. It's bringing the energy. It's allowing us to move into what would be eventually, whenever we finish the song, the second beat of this drop. And it's embodied by actually having this element present. And we get this nice meaty bass sound that's continuing to go. But we also get all of this punch and weight and grit and energy around it. And that's the kind of energy, I assume, that people feel when they're at, EDM concerts or whatever, and the bass does drop and they just go bonkers. They start jumping and dancing and all that. It's all that kinetic energy. We had all this potential energy in the first 5 or 6 minutes of trying to get this thing started. We finally got it going, and the sound is just bigger than ever. It's heavier than ever. It's punchier than ever. This is that potential energy converted into kinetic. And it's just a fantastic exploration of what it feels like when you feel that bass drop, when you feel the drop come in and it's time to go. And then it transitions out of this into the last third of the track or something like that, where we start introducing these string-like components that are playing chord progressions. And I mentioned something about, it's nice to see an introduction of beauty in here. And again, remember, minimalism is about hyper thoroughly exploring a specific singular moment. And I think, at least for listeners of electronic music, there is a lot of beauty in the drop. Yes, it is a bass kick, and some bassier sounds, really dropping four on the floor just to have this really punchy thing to it. It's not usually the melodic section that comes before it to build the energy into this more sonoristic element. But I think there is beauty in the bass drop, having that tension converted into release, getting that cathartic release and feeling the overwhelming power of this new section that makes these people want to jump around and dance and all that. There is a sort of beauty in how that moment is composed and how it makes people feel. So if we're going to explore this moment of the drop beginning, we need to capture trying to start the music. trying to actually get that beat going. We need to capture the punchiness, the heaviness, the weightiness of it, and we need to capture the beauty of it, the freeing element, the part where people feel like they can do anything. They're free to be themselves, to dance the way they want to jump up and down, to have that release if they have any stress or anything like that, just to let it go. All of this is encompassed in in a drop, or could be encompassed in a drop, not necessarily this one. And of course, I'm injecting some beliefs I have about the drop in general and how people might relate to it. So there's definitely some bias in here, but yeah, this is to me a fantastic minimalism piece. And I don't know if that's intentional, but that's what I got out of it. I don't know, I enjoy it from that perspective. I'm probably never going to listen to it again. It's not, to me, it's like artwork you might see in a museum. It's going to affect you possibly when you look at it. You're going to be in awe. Maybe you can look at the finer details and have an appreciation for color composition or stroke direction, the material used. But at the end of the day, it's something you're going to experience right here, but you're not going to pay the money, sometimes the exorbitant amount of money, to buy it and hang it in your house. It's something that's going to affect you when you view it, but not necessarily something you need to continue coming back to. And yeah, from that angle, like I said, I really enjoy what's going on here. It's fascinating. It does make me want to check out his other stuff, especially because these titles are just bonkers. But yeah, it's I think you really have to be in the right mood for it. And I think assuming more of his stuff is like this, if I go in expecting minimalism, I think I'll be quite happy by the end of the album. Again, I don't know if it'll be something I want to come back to, but I think I'll have enjoyed experiencing it at least once. Those are my thoughts on Paul Jebanasam's Search Another. I'm just going to call it that. The first two words I can pronounce. This is where you guys come in. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you enjoyed about this one. If you didn't enjoy it, if you agree with me, if you disagree, if you had a completely different experience, please let me know. I'm always open to other perspectives. I am definitely not saying mine is the definitive one. In fact, I started it by saying I doubt it's even the authorial intention. So I'm always open to hearing what other people got out of this or the journey that they went on with this one. When you're done commenting, you can head up to the description box. In there is a link for Linktree. Take you to this place right here. You can buy merch. You can join the Patreon and vote on future songs and themes. You can follow me on Twitter, join the Discord community, all sorts of stuff. Go ahead and check that out. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. That is it for excessive week, and that was quite excessive, I will say. 5 minutes ago, our creator request aired. That one's going on, and you can check that out. It's a band called Valcata. They are symphonic metal, I believe. I don't know. I'll be checking them out right now as soon as I finish this. And what's the other thing? Oh, otherwise, weekend, not doing anything. Patreons, there's a live stream on Sunday. Don't forget about that, 11 a.m. EST. Otherwise, I'll be back on Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC. We'll be looking at our next 2 weeks worth of theme covers. We're going to look at an original and then a cover. We're going to do that for 5 songs, which is going to be 10 videos total. So it's going to take both weeks. We're going to have a 2-week theme. Yeah, and then, special selections as usual as the second video on each day. Alright, until next time, remember to be critical, but not cynical of the music you listen to. Have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.